What if there was a country where one morning you could stand beside a turquoise lake, and by afternoon find yourself surrounded by glaciers, ancient forests, and mountains disappearing into the clouds? A place where nature doesn't simply surround you. Nature becomes the destination. This is New Zealand, a remote island nation in the South Pacific that feels almost impossibly untouched. For many travelers, New Zealand isn't just another beautiful country. It's the kind of place that makes you stop, look around, and wonder if what you're seeing is actually real. And perhaps nowhere shows that better than the South Island. The Southern Alps stretch for roughly 500 kilometers across the island, creating a dramatic backbone of snow-covered peaks, glaciers, valleys, and crystal-clear rivers. But the beauty of New Zealand isn't just about mountains. It's the incredible variety. Within a single journey, the landscape can transform from golden beaches to deep rainforest to enormous alpine peaks, and finally into landscapes carved by ice over thousands of years. Imagine driving through an empty road with mountains rising on both sides, no skyscrapers, no traffic, just the sound of wind, and the enormous landscape in front of you. Then suddenly, the road opens up, and there it is. Aoraki/Mount Cook, New Zealand's highest mountain, rising 3,724 meters above sea level. Aoraki dominates a landscape filled with glaciers and rugged alpine valleys. This is not the kind of place you simply photograph. You experience it. The mountains feel enormous, the valleys feel endless, and the silence feels almost unreal. One of the most famous ways to experience the region is the Hooker Valley area, where walking trails lead visitors towards some of the country's most spectacular alpine scenery. But there's another place nearby that becomes completely different after sunset: Lake Tekapo. During the day, its turquoise water sits beneath a dramatic mountain backdrop, but when darkness arrives, the sky becomes the real attraction. Lake Tekapo lies within the Aoraki Mackenzie International Dark Sky Reserve, one of the world's remarkable places for stargazing. Look upward, and the Milky Way seems to stretch across the entire sky, and suddenly, New Zealand doesn't feel like the edge of the world anymore. It feels like you're standing underneath the universe itself. But if you think New Zealand's beauty ends with mountains and lakes, we're only getting started. Because on the western side of the South Island, nature becomes darker, wilder, and far more dramatic. And that brings us to Fjordland. Imagine standing on a boat. The water is almost perfectly still. Towering mountains rise hundreds of meters around you. Clouds hang low between the peaks, and waterfalls suddenly appear from the mist, falling from cliffs directly into the dark water below. Welcome to Milford Sound, or in Maori, Piopiotahi. Located inside Fjordland, Milford Sound is one of the most spectacular landscapes in New Zealand. Its mountains and valleys were shaped by glaciers over immense periods of time, creating the dramatic fjords we see today. And this is where New Zealand begins to feel almost mythical. The most famous landmark here is Mitre Peak, rising roughly 1 kilometer above the water. But the mountains are only half the story. The rain is what transforms Milford Sound. When rain arrives, hundreds of temporary waterfalls can appear along the cliffs, and Milford Sound receives enormous amounts of rainfall each year, making it one of the wettest places on Earth. So strangely, the weather that might ruin a normal vacation can make Milford Sound even more beautiful. Mist moves across the cliffs. Water pours from hidden valleys. The mountains disappear, then slowly emerge again. It's nature constantly changing in front of your eyes. And there is another reason this place feels so untouched. Wildlife still thrives here. Bottlenose dolphins can sometimes be seen in the water. And the surrounding region is home to the rare Fjordland crested penguin. But Milford Sound is only one piece of Fjordland. The wider region contains ancient forests, enormous lakes, granite peaks, and other spectacular fjords. This is a landscape where nature seems to have been given complete control. No giant resorts, no endless buildings, just mountains, water, forest, and sky. And then there are places where the landscape becomes completely different. Travel north, and suddenly the dark mountains and fjords give way to something brighter. Golden beaches, clear blue water, dense green forests, and hidden coves. This is Abel Tasman National Park. Abel Tasman is famous for its golden sandy beaches and bright blue waters. The Abel Tasman Coast Track stretches about 60 kilometers along granite headlands, rainforest, and beaches. And this is perhaps one of the most surprising things about New Zealand. The country can feel wild and dramatic, but it can also feel peaceful. You can move from towering mountains to a quiet beach without leaving the same country. That's the magic of New Zealand. It's not one landscape, it's hundreds of landscapes, compressed into one extraordinary journey. But there is still one more side of New Zealand, a side created not by glaciers, but by fire, volcanoes, emerald lakes, ancient lava, and landscapes that look like they belong on another planet. Welcome to the volcanic heart of New Zealand. Imagine hiking across a landscape where the mountains were created by volcanoes, where emerald-colored lakes sit between rugged peaks, and steam rises from the earth. This is Tongariro National Park. At the center of the park stand three major volcanoes, Ruapehu, Ngauruhoe, and Tongariro. Together, they create one of New Zealand's most dramatic landscapes. The famous Tongariro Alpine Crossing takes travelers through volcanic terrain, emerald lakes, old lava flows, and dramatic mountain scenery. But there's something even more fascinating about this place. Tongariro isn't only naturally beautiful, it is also deeply connected to Maori culture and history. The park became New Zealand's first national park in 1887 and later received UNESCO World Heritage recognition for both its cultural and natural significance. Standing here, you begin to understand why New Zealand has inspired filmmakers, photographers, explorers, and travelers from around the world. Because the scenery doesn't feel ordinary, it feels cinematic. And perhaps that's why parts of New Zealand became so recognizable to audiences around the world through films like The Lord of the Rings. But New Zealand's beauty doesn't belong to Hollywood. Hollywood simply found what was already here. Take Wanaka, a peaceful alpine town surrounded by mountains and a beautiful lake. The landscape changes again. The mountains are still there, but everything feels calmer. The water reflects the peaks, the air feels open, and the horizon seems almost endless. Then there's another extraordinary destination, Queenstown. Surrounded by mountains and lakes, Queenstown is one of the most spectacular settings in the country. But perhaps the best thing about New Zealand isn't any single destination. It's the journey between them. A winding road, a mountain appearing through the clouds, a lake beside the highway, a waterfall hidden inside a forest, a tiny town surrounded by enormous landscapes. And suddenly, you realize something. New Zealand doesn't need to convince you that it's beautiful. It simply lets nature speak for itself. Maybe that's what makes this country so special. In a world that is becoming increasingly crowded, increasingly connected, and increasingly built around screens, New Zealand still offers places where the landscape feels bigger than everything humans have created. Places where you can look at a mountain and feel small. Look at a lake and feel calm. Look at the night sky and remember just how enormous the universe really is. From the glaciers of Aoraki to the stars above Tekapo, from the waterfalls of Milford Sound to the golden beaches of Abel Tasman, from the volcanoes of Tongariro to the peaceful lakes of Wanaka. New Zealand isn't just a country of beautiful places, it's a country where beauty exists almost everywhere you look. So, is New Zealand the most beautiful country on Earth? Maybe there's no objective answer, because beauty is personal. But if there is one place that can make you question what nature is capable of, New Zealand has a very strong case. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about it is that somewhere beyond the mountains, beyond the forests, and beyond the horizon, there is still another view waiting to be discovered. This is New Zealand, a place that doesn't look like another world. It looks like the world before we changed it. If you enjoyed this journey through New Zealand, subscribe to Chill or Feel, because there is always another incredible place waiting to be discovered.